Hey y'all, it's Shayla, and today I'm going to be making an Italian loaf bread, and it's a King Arthur flour recipe, and it's called Italian supermarket bread. And basically it's just the long loaves that are, I guess, about this wide, and so that's what I'm going to make. It's like most other bread recipes. You generally have flour, water, yeast, salt, a little bit of sweetener, and sometimes you use a milk powder, that kind of thing. So it's really it's very simple. The only thing that's going to be different about this is really going to be how I shape it. But the way that you mix the dough together and knead it is pretty much similar to any other type of bread. I will link the recipe in the bottom. I'm just not going to be quite as detailed as I am in some of my other, because the techniques are generally the same as this as it is in other of the recipes that I have done before. So I will go through the process, but I'm not going to be quite as detailed. So anyways, we'll get started. I have 1 1/3 cup of warm water, and I've got my yeast already in here. It calls for 2 teaspoons of yeast. I always add an extra teaspoon of yeast, but that's just because it makes me feel better. So you don't have to. You can go strictly by the recipe. That's just what I do. It calls for 2 teaspoons of sugar, and you can use other sweeteners, like you can use honey. All right, and so then I just turn my mixer on a little bit. All right, then the next thing that I'm going to need is my dry milk, and I'm using the coconut cream powder again. You do not have to, and it calls for 1/4 cup, and this is a 1/2 cup, so it's a 1/2 cup measuring cup, so I just used half of that. Next thing I need is my potato flakes, and it calls for 1/4 cup of you can use either instant mashed potatoes, or you can use potato flour. If you use potato flour, then you're only going to use 2 tablespoons as opposed to 1/4 cup. I am actually going to use a 1/2 cup just because I'm used to using that in my bread recipes. It makes the bread softer, I think, and you can't tell it's in there, but it's just really good. So, all right. I need my salt, and I need 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt. You can use whatever kind of salt you want to, sea salt, regular salt, it doesn't really matter, but it's just what I have, so that's what I'm going to use. Alright, so the next thing I need to do is I need to add my oil, and it calls for olive oil. I don't have olive oil. I have avocado oil. That's what I'm going to use. So it calls for 3 tablespoons of the oil. Now, what I am actually making this bread for is I wanted to make some French bread style pizzas, and so my husband, I was actually watching Needy Homesteader, and she made some using a different recipe of bread, and it looked really good, and my husband saw it and he was like, ooh, that looks really good. So, all right, and it's my birthday, so I can make what I want. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to add in is we're going to add in the flour. And if you guys have ever watched me do bread before, you know that I generally will add in all the flour except for 1 cup. And then I will just start watching it to make sure that it is approximately where we want it. It calls for 4 cups, so I will start with 3. There's 1. And 3. And then I'm just going to watch it until it is almost completely incorporated, and that'll tell me whether or not I need to start adding more or not. And I started trying to make my own bread. We were still living in some apartments after we had moved back to North Carolina, and my husband had, he's been through a couple of job losses and that kind of thing, and I was always looking for a way to, you know, eat well, but not, for it not to be so expensive. I was always looking to cut costs. Wow, okay. I don't need any more flour. So it's just going to need for 5 to 8 minutes. But really, I was always looking for a way for us to cut costs on our grocery bill and all that kind of thing. And so I started trying to learn how to make my own bread. And I always loved the smell of fresh baked bread. And my husband loves bread. Like he could sit down and eat a loaf of bread all by himself. I remember, you know, at this point I didn't have a stand mixer or anything like that, and I was doing everything by hand, and I had some okay successes. Sometimes successes have to do with the recipes you use. If you use recipes that are tried and true, then you are more likely to have success. So I think that some of that was that. Some of it was me not understanding the way that yeast worked, the way that the bread worked, and some of that was just trial and error, and some of it was just lack of experience. I will tell you that the more that I have made bread, the more successes I have. For anyone who's out there who gets frustrated because maybe theirs doesn't turn out completely the way that they want it to, don't stop trying just because it doesn't turn out great the first time. Some of my failures still tasted okay, and some of them I just had to throw away. But it took me years. I mean, that was back in 2010, I believe, that we moved in those apartments, and so it's been 11 years that I've been really working on making bread. So, and I'm still learning. There are still things that I learn. So, anyways, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let this finish kneading, because it's pretty much just where it just needs to just knead the bread. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let it run and knead the bread for me, and then I will bring you guys back. Okay, as with most doughs, what you want to do is after it has been kneaded for the right amount of time, if you're hand kneading, it is going to be 8 to 10 minutes. If you are using your stand mixer, it is 5 to 8 minutes in your stand mixer. So it is really, really soft. It is smooth, and it is really, really nice. So once you get it to this texture, then you're gonna want to put it, like, make sure it's in a ball. You're gonna put your dough into a bowl that has been well oiled, and then you're either going to oil the top of it, or you can put enough oil in the bottom to flip it, one of the two. Since I have an olive oil spray, I'm just going to spray it. I don't really like using these types of sprays, but I haven't actually found a one of the manual ones, like where you pump it and then it sprays if you put oil in it. I haven't found one of those that actually lasts here in my house, because they almost always die on me. So it gets to the point where it doesn't matter how many times you pump, it doesn't spray, it just kind of spits at you. So anyways, so right now I'm using the spray. Anyways, so you're going to put this into a warm place, the warmest place in your house. And you're going to let it rise for approximately an hour or until it is doubled. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so it has already about doubled in size, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it out onto my countertop. Okay, so as you see, when I turned it out, it did start to kind of deflate on its own. So anytime anybody says that you punch the dough down, you don't really have to punch it. So anyways, I am just going to basically get this approximately even so that I can divide the dough in half. Alright, and then you can either take a pizza cutter to do this, or I have a bench knife. Either one is fine, and then you just cut it in half. I'll move this to the side. Okay, and I'm going to move this one to the side, and then I am going to Alright, so basically what I'm doing is I am patting this out into a rectangular shape, and I want it to be fairly even. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be exact, but I do want it to be fairly even in thickness. All you're going to do is you're going to roll it so that, you know, the long ways, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to pinch the seam of it and then roll it over, and I do that. And then I roll and tuck the ends, or tuck and pinch the ends, sorry. I tuck and pinch the ends, okay, so that the ends are kind of equal. And all right, so then I am going to put these back onto a pan. I'm going to put both of them here, and I'm going to put them back in the oven to rise again, and then I will bring you back. Okay, So my bread has risen and it is really ready to be put into the oven. You want to make an egg wash, and basically all it is it's an egg or egg white, either one. You can do either one. I had some egg whites in, you can buy egg white stuff in the store in boxes, and so that's actually what I'm using right now, and it works just fine. So whatever you have, you can use that, and then I just brush it on, and it'll make a nice dark crust. All right, so after I brush this on, okay, so if you guys don't have one of these, this is a lame, and it basically is for scoring dough. You can use a very sharp knife. The thinner the blade, the better, because it catches less. But you can take these and you can score your dough, and it just makes it really pretty whenever you bake it. All right. All right. And the sharper it is, the less it catches. So, there we go. There we go. All right, so some of my boys like this seasoning, and one of them prefers it plain. This is everything bagel seasoning. My husband really likes the everything bagel seasoning. So I'm going to do one plain. I'm going to do this one with everything bagel. I'm also going to do the same thing with, I have two other loaves that are rising. I'll do one with everything bagel and one plain. So I'm going to get this in the oven. You're supposed to put it in the oven at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes. Okay, so this is what they look like when they are done. And this is the one with the everything bagel seasoning. And they're still warm, so I need to let them cool off just a little bit more, but here's the other two that I have. Basically, it's darker because of the egg wash. The egg wash makes them a little bit darker, but it's really crispy. Okay, so I'm gonna let these cool off a little bit, and then I'm going to cut them down the middle and make French bread pizzas with them. If you have any questions, let me know, and you can just ask them in the comments below. And anyway, so we thank you again for spending time with us, and we'll see you soon.